Hey folks, this is Derek with Reef Automation, and today we're going to install the new Trigger Systems version 2 motor. All right, folks, so here is the unit up close and personal. It's quite different than the first unit. First of all, it's got the main sensor 2 and sensor 3 split here, so you can basically add whatever sensors you don't want to use instead of them being attached at all times. It also has this block right here, which we're going to go over in a second. It's got your up, down, okay, and it's got an on and off button. But the biggest change is it has this little LED window right here, and we're going to go through that in a bit as well. So what the Phoenix connector or the green connector does is you can hook this up to a breakout box and it'll actually send alerts. It's got two different plugs and it's also got a ground here. The first plug is for notification, and what that will do is you can enable and disable in the menu if you want to get notifications if the motor was to stop, and it will actually go to, you know, your Apex or your Hydros or whatever you want and alert you when the motor stops, which is really neat. The second connector is the Fleece alarm, and that is also very useful. So what it will do is it'll actually alert you if the fleece was to get low, which is a very, very neat new innovation that they put into this motor. So when you get it, it comes with the motor itself. It comes with the plate in which to mount the motor. I like to keep these separate because mounting them while they're combined is a little more difficult. It comes with this new brace, which we will show you. And what this brace does is it braces the fleece roller onto the motor, so that way if the motor was to move, it keeps the fleece nice and straight. It also comes with new wire guides. The wire guides that are inside are a little bit smaller than these. I'm probably not going to use them, but these are the new wire guides that come with it. It comes with new optical sensors, as you can see. It comes with 3 optical sensors, which go into the plugs that I mentioned earlier. Now keep in mind, these optical sensors do not have a 3.5 millimeter connector, so you can't use any optical sensors with this. They are a little bit smaller. They are different optical sensors, so I would recommend using the optical sensors that come in the box. It comes with an extension cable for one of the sensors if you need to extend it, and then it comes with magnets in which to mount the sensors. It also, of course, comes with all new screws, which is great because you don't want to reuse your old screws. So when you first get it, you're going to notice it does not come with a power connector. You're going to have to reuse the power adapter that it comes with. So we're going to plug it in, and you will see when you plug it in that you're going to get this little trigger icon. Now what it says in the manual is to not put the sensors in until you have set up everything. So you want to make sure that you do not put any of the sensors in at all during the first boot up. Now you can see on here, you got in the upper left hand corner, you have the fleece amount that is left. You have what type of motor you want to use, either the sensor or timer, which we'll go over. It also says if it is moving right now, which is in the lower left-hand corner, and as you can see, it is moving because we haven't set up anything yet. And the disabled means as if the alarm is on or off. So when you go here, if you hit OK, you're going to get to the menu here. Now the first one is going to be sensor. And what that does is if you click on it, you can change between timer and sensor mode. What sensor mode does is it uses the sensor, the optical sensor that you've plugged into main in the back. If you set it on timer mode, what it's going to do is every so often, which we're going to set up in the timer menu, it's going to set up the amount of time in which you want to move the roller. So if we go to the timer menu, you'll notice you have an on time and an off time. In this case, it's set up for 10 seconds on and 30 minutes off. So every 30 minutes, it's going to turn on for 10 seconds. Or of course, you can just use the optical sensor. I like to use the optical sensor because it's a little more accurate. So we're gonna go there. If you go to Fleece menu, this is where you set up the fleece. Now you can actually manually set up the fleece roller life if you know what that is, or you can just reset it to 100, which is what you're typically going to do when you install this. Now if you go to message, what this tells you is, do you want to get an alert or a message on the screen to tell you when the roll life is at 5%. And that's what the message life is here. So you can actually change the message life to whatever you want in which to get that alert. Now you'll notice everything I do here is with the up and down arrow and the OK in the middle. Now if I go down, the next one is alarm menu. This tells you if you want the motor on to be on, the menu itself, or not. You can also set the sensor to enabled or disabled, which means you can set it up to sense if the motor is going to be not working. If you go down, you have the sensor menu. This is where you enable and disable the sensors. If you're going to use a sensor, you're going to want to make sure you set it to when it hits water, what do you want it to do? Do you want it to shut off the motor, or do you want it to turn on the motor? And then you can set it to unused if you're not going to use them. The next menu is motor on. You can actually just turn on the motor infinitely by turning this on and off. You can reset it to defaults. It tells you your software version and your exit menu. Now, that is the full menu and how you're going to use the system. Now, this is your off and on button. This is if you want to manually turn it. So right now it's just going to keep turning because it's looking for the sensor. And that's why it's just going to keep going and going and going until we set this up. All right, so let's go ahead and install it and show you how it all works. All right, folks, so when you first get started, you're going to probably want to use a new fleece. As you can see, I ran a new fleece through it. It doesn't really matter, but in order to use that fleece percentage, I would recommend just using a brand new fleece. That way it starts off at 100. You'll see I already have a sensor ran from my Apex, and what this used to be, and I'm still going to use it, is a high water sensor to tell me if the water gets high. So I'm going to keep that in the system. You'll notice I also already ran the power cord, so really that's all you need to get started. Now what I'd recommend is running the sensors first. All right, so we're first going to install the long sensor, and my sump is quite large, so we're going to need the extension. So we're going to just put the sump sensor right where it was in the older system, right at the front. Okay, so I'm just going to set this sensor wire in the back for now and wait until we have the motor. So that's the first sensor run. Now the second sensor, you're going to actually want to run through the small hole that's back there. And there is a wire guide right here underneath, and it's held on by these two screws. So you're going to want a Phillips screwdriver. You're going to take these screws out, and you will see that the older style holder is this blue color. And like I was saying earlier, these are a little smaller than the new ones, and the wiring within the new optical sensors is a little thicker. And since I'm actually going to be running my own sensor from the Apex, I'm probably going to want to use the larger sensor holder. All right, so I got the new sensor holder, and you're going to see it has a much larger trough here to run the larger wire. So what we're going to do is we're going to want to take the new sensor, run it through the hole in the back so that way it can get to the back of the motor. And then you're going to want to take your newer sensors, run them into the trough. As you can see, it's not as easy as it looks because, again, we're running an Apex sensor through there, and we're running one of their sensors which has a smaller wire. You're going to want to make sure that you leave a good amount of slack because you're going to want to be able to place the sensor anywhere you want inside the sump here. Okay, so once you've got your sensors, you should have, in my case, two sensors. You have the one that's going to the motor and the one that's going to the Apex. Now, I'm going to use their new magnets because I think they're a little more aesthetically pleasing. And again, this one is for the high water sensor. Now, you'll also notice when you use the new system that it no longer uses this guide. You just basically put these sensors wherever you want. And that is something different that they did because these pieces actually don't fit within here like they used to. So here is the fleece roller sensor, and we're gonna probably wanna put it near or by the water line. I mean, that will probably have to be adjusted as we do it. So there we go. We got our Apex high water sensor and we got our fleece roller sensor. All right, so first you're gonna wanna put the back plate on. I find it that it's easier in my case because I have the piping right here to put the fleece roller bracket on first. Okay, so there's 3 screws. There's one in the middle, and there's one in the back, and there's one in the front left. So I find it easier to put the middle screw on first, so that way you can just swivel the right and left to how you need it. So I'm just gonna slowly turn the middle one. You don't wanna put a lot of pressure on these. These are plastic screws. It is recommended to hand tighten them, but I like to use a screwdriver to get it going. There's one all the way in the back that's a little tricky to get to. Now once you have it on, you can tighten it if you wish. The middle one is a little tricky to get your hand into, so it might be a good idea to tighten it with a screwdriver. But the rest I would recommend hand tightening, so that way you don't break them. Okay, so now we're ready to actually install the motor. You're gonna wanna remove the cog in the front so that way you can get the motor in. You're going to fit it inside. It should fit nice and flush like that. Then you're going to get out the small screwdriver or the small screws. Now in the bag, you're going to have small screws and long screws. In this case, you're going to want to use the shorter screws. And with these screws, you want to be really careful. Do not over tighten them, because they will strip very easily, and then your motor will no longer sit correctly on the plate, and it'll be a lot more difficult to use this. So just when you feel it kind of tug is when you're going to want to stop turning it. Now there are 4 screws in total. Once you have all 4 in, you are ready to go. So now at this point, I would actually want to plug the power in and the sensors. Now, what you're gonna wanna do is it's very important how this works, that you plug the sensors in first and then you plug the power in. You do not wanna do it the opposite way. How they've programmed this is they require you to plug the sensors in first in order for it to initialize them. All right, so now we're gonna put the front plate on. Now you're gonna reuse your old front plate because the new kit does not come with it. It's pretty simple. With the front plate, it's just 2 screws, one on the right and one on the left. So we'll go ahead and do that. Now you're gonna wanna put the roller on. So we'll get the roller all ready to go. Okay, so we got the roller on. At this time, I would probably recommend resetting the roller life. So to do that again, you're gonna hit the middle button. You're gonna go down to where it says Fleece menu, and you're gonna say reset to 100. It's going to automatically reset it to 100. All right, so that's ready to go. Now in this video, we're not going to hook up the breakout box. I might do that in the future. For now, we're just gonna have it run normally with no alarms. So for that, we just keep it as it is. All right, so now we're gonna place the fleece onto the roller. All right, so once we get the fleece roller on, I usually like to do a little test just to make sure it's turning, make sure that the fleece roller is moving, and it is. And now we're gonna install the new brace. It's pretty easy to install the brace. We're gonna take the one piece, place it in the back here. It slips over the motor. And then the front piece you're not gonna put on yet. You're gonna take the brace. It has 2 screws. We'll get the front screws in by hand. And for these, I actually like to tighten them with a screwdriver. And the reason I like to do that is because this is the brace that holds the piece together, and you want this to be as tight as possible so it doesn't move. If there's any type of slack, it will move around, and you don't want that when you're using the brace. And there you have it. All right, folks, so we got the version 2 motor in. Overall, I think it's a really, really good upgrade. It's a lot stronger than the first motor. I'm noticing after a few days of having it installed that it doesn't seem to slip as often. The fact that I'm able to get my fleece roller information right from the front screen is really interesting. I'm going to install the breakout box, which is also going to give me alerts to let me know when the fleece roller is low, which I think is a fantastic idea by Trigger Systems. Overall, this is a really good upgrade. I highly recommend anyone that has their Platinum Sumps to get one of these motor upgrades. It will work on any of the Platinum Sumps. You can get it from their website, triggersys.com. And overall, if you have any questions, just let me know in the comments. I appreciate you watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.